Okay, so for today's video, I want to talk about a really neat formula that I just discovered. Or not really what I discovered, but I found on the internet. So I want to start off this video by evaluating this seemingly complicated integral, because for one, um, we have e raised to a trig function, and of course, I can't just do a usual u substitution because it would be the input in the trig function is different from the original trig function we're raising e to. So of course, but um, this really just uses some trig identities merely. Um, Namely, I'm going to use the identity that sine 2 theta is equal to 2 sine theta cosine theta. Alright, so then I can write this integral as being e to the sine x times 2 sine x cosine x dx. And so I can put the 2 at the front, which I will just worry about later. And of course, now this is nothing but a simple substitution, but I'm going to use t because you guys will see later. Because in the end, we're going to be doing a integration by parts. So I'm going to set t equals sine x. And we find that dt is then equal to cosine x dx, which is precisely this over here. So now I will get 2. Making our substitution, I'll get 2 times the integral of e to the t times t dt. Because sine over here is t, this over here is a t, and the cosine x dx is equal to dt. Okay. Alright. Apparently my phone's low bat now. So anyways, from here on out, I want to do a simple integration by parts. Of course, I'm going to set u equals to t. So therefore, my du would simply be dt. And my dv is equal to e to the t dt. And so my v would simply be e to the t. And after evaluating the integral, you guys will find that this is nothing but 2 times e 2 times t e to the t minus t plus c. And of course, replacing things or putting things back the way they used to be, or going back to the x world, we find that the integral of e to the sine x sine 2x dx is equal to 2. Oh, sorry. This is not t, but rather e to the t. My bad. 2 e to the t times t minus 1. Oh no, not t, but rather sine x times sine x minus 1 plus c. Okay, so with this in mind, I mean, in the end, it's rather a elementary integral. It can be solved by the usual, methods that we would normally use in evaluating integrals. But what then I want to do now, what I want to do now is I want to modify my integral. So first of all, I want to turn this sine x into an x. And of course, I'll turn this 2x into a simple x. So I want to evaluate the integral of e to the x sine x dx. And of course, this also uses an integration by parts, so therefore it would also be elementary. But now, instead of that, I want to modify it some more, and I just want to replace this sine x with the sinc function. So the sinc function, so sinc of x is defined to be sine of x over x. So of course, this is a well-known function, namely the squeeze theorem tells us that the limit of this function as x approaches 0, so the sinc function, is merely 1. And of course, the graph would look something like this, something like that. But now I want to say, I want to evaluate this integral. So e to the x sinc of x dx. Of course, now this would be a non-elementary integral. However, the point of this video is I want to show you guys a formula which simplifies things much better. So first things that we want to do is we want to impose limits on this integral, because evaluating it on its own without limits or evaluating the indefinite integral would give us a non-elementary result. So I want to make the limit go from 0 to infinity. So that brings us to my problem over here, the main point of this video. So how do I evaluate e to the x sinc of x dx going from 0 to infinity? So the formula that I want to point you guys to is called Lobachevsky's formula. And it merely tells us that the integral from 0 to infinity of sinc of x times the function f of x dx is simply equal to the integral from 0 to pi over 2 of f of x dx. And okay, let me know in the comments if you guys want me to derive this formula for you. But I'm just gonna leave it here as it is. So, knowing this, I can do the interchange of my limits and say that this integral is merely the same as the integral from 0 to pi over 2 of e to the x dx. Because my e to the x here is gonna be my f of x, and of course my sinc function is gonna stay the same. Of course, the integral of e to the x is simply e to the x. We're only evaluating, of course, from 0 to, so we're evaluating e to the x going from 0 to 0 pi over 2, which is simply just e to the pi over 2. So this works for any function of f of x, except one wherein it cancels the x that we see in the numerator in our sinc function. Because if it cancels out, if I cancel out the formula, or if I cancel out the x in the denominator using the function, like say I'm gonna say f of x is, that looks ugly as heck, Jesus, f of x is equal to x squared, then it's merely just the integral from 0 to infinity of x sine of x dx, which diverges, unfortunately. You can already tell from inspection that this thing diverges. So I want an f of x, so it works for an f of x such that f of x times the sinc function of x remains so, and it's not equal to some g of x, new function g of x, times some sine of x, where of course the resulting integral from 0 to infinity where's dx diverges, because of course divergent integrals aren't of much use to us. So this is really just a short video. I just wanted to give you guys a small introduction to this wonderful formula that I found called Lobachevsky's formula.